Hello, my name is Nathan Slafter. I am the founder of Rent, the platform that lets you pay rent, build credit, and earn rewards. When my wife and I moved from New York City to California, we did a little math and we realized we had spent enough money on rent that we could have bought a house. Yet we had nothing to show for it. And there are many, many other people that have experienced that exact same thing. And we started thinking to ourselves, why is it that I earn rewards for everything that I do, for the airlines that I fly, the hotels that I stay, the coffee that I drink, the haircuts that I get, but my biggest monthly expense, on average, 30% of people's take-home pay, they don't get a thank you, they don't get a latte, let alone a free night stay, or an opportunity to build credit for the future. Rent is broken, so our company, Rent, is fixing it, letting you pay rent, build credit, and earn rewards. Now, when we talk about paying rent, this is not unique in the space. There are other payment gateways out there. However, what is interesting is that 80% of the US who rents still uses paper. What does that mean for landlords? Trips to the bank, making sure checks don't bounce, making sure it's registered in the ledger. And then for renters, you have to pay using cash and checks. It's 2019. It's 2019. Oftentimes, the checkbook is only reserved for renters and for your landlord. And so what do? We created a frictionless gateway that connects the two, but moreover, we're thinking about payments. As a socially conscious millennial or individual, do you want to round up your rent to help charitable initiatives? Do you want a one-stop payment gateway for everything rent, your Wi-Fi, your cable TV, your utilities? And that's what we've done. The next thing we looked at was building credit. This one aggravates me. Why do I have to give my FICO score, my background check, my bank statement to my landlord, yet as a renter, whatever I do has no impact whatsoever on any of those things? FICO is built for ownership. It's built for debt. So we've created a proprietary rent history score that's built for the rental economy. We are now in a renter economy. We see it with Uber, Airbnb, the gig economy. We're in a renter economy. So how do you build a renter economy credit? Through transactions. Did you pay your rent on time? Did you pay your rent early? Through behavior. Did you get your security deposit back? Were you actually a good tenant? Through reputation, like what did your neighbors think about you? What did your landlords think about you? And through social good, are you building community? Are you rounding up your rent to help homeless initiatives and more? What's important to mention is before, there has never been an opportunity until recently to create and store this type of behavior in a proprietary manner, but now we have that availability with distributed ledger technology and blockchain. So that's what this rent history is built on. And speaking with dozens of landlords and property managers, one of their biggest pain points is tenant assessment. Yes, you may pay your credit card every single month, but you are a terrible renter. And so now we solve that problem. So pay rent, build credit, and we tie it all together with rewards. Finally, I get something back for that rent. Think of us as the ultimate membership ecosystem for the renter economy. And when we talk about rewards, this is things that are tangible by paying your rent on time, paying your rent early. But moreover, landlords now, for the first time, have an incentive to drive behaviors that make their properties more valuable. What do I mean by that? Who's the first person to know whether or not they're going to renew their lease? The tenant. So if you can incentivize early lease renewals, or if you can incentivize finding your replacement, that's a win-win. No longer are you dealing with vacancy, no longer are you dealing with problems in occupancy, like you've solved the problem. And so what we're mentioning here is the whole paying rent, building credit, earning rewards is truly greater than each one of its parts. And the reason that we're able to do this is our team. So I have a background in business development. I've invested in companies, I've advised, I've raised millions of dollars for different companies. And so now we're doing it for ourselves. And so in building teams, I was like, I get to pick my ultimate team. So the first person I chose is my wife. Yeah, she's a designer. You can see by the slides, like she is next level. The next thing I did is we have some significant elements in technology that we're building, something that's pretty novel and that's proprietary. And so I chose Marty Mosley. Marty is an amazing world-class enterprise architect and technology officer. I also have Alex Morrissey. Alex Morrissey is a PhD quantum physicist out of Berkeley who's helped think about gamification and AI, because we're talking about two very interesting elements that are going to transform this renter economy. One piece is the rewards ecosystem that drives behavior, and the other one is the blockchain that's just establishing credit. And so what we've already done is secured a significant amount of IP. Trademarks, we've identified several patents. I have over 150 domains. And so rent's going to be synonymous with the rental economy. I've already invested $60,000 in this project. Our prototype is done. We are now in testing, and we will be launching probably within 4 to 6 months. How we're going to market is very strategic. Did you know that 50% of the US lives in 40 major cities? So we're going to fish where the fish are. We're going to start with New York, the Bay Area, and Chicago, and we have a two-prong approach. If you've ever been to a city, you always see the buses and the subways. We'll have those engaging, exciting marketing opportunities, strategic viral campaigns, guerrilla marketing. But then our executive team and our landlords have deep relationships with family offices, with REITs, as well as a National Apartment Association. So we'll be approaching the business development strategy to engage property managers and the landlords alike. When you look at the renter economy, it's a $1.2 trillion spend. This is 36% of Americans who spend over $600 billion on rent. The vast majority have no rewards whatsoever. But moreover, these are the exact services and goods that we are providing through our ecosystem. So we are the platform that is going to aggregate this renter consumer, which is important because the renters are the new consumer pipeline. What do I mean by that? Last year, SoftBank invested $120 million in a renter insurance company focused on rent. $120 million, billion-dollar valuation, 90,000 users. That's 1/10 of 1% of the market in the US. $1 billion, 90,000 users. What's powerful there is Rent, our platform, is the ultimate pipeline for all things rent, including renters insurance. And with the data that we're collecting, we will eventually be able to underwrite insurance, and that's how we make money, through simple lead generation, through affiliate marketing bounties, also through the data. We are collecting a significant amount of data and small transaction fees. And as we grow, we're looking at a lifetime customer value in year 2 about $120, and by year 5, that'll accelerate to $496. That's an ARR of $30 by year 2 and $124 by year 5. Our model is validated by a third party, and it's built upon industry benchmarks. So I'm talking industry benchmarks for cost of goods sold, for customer development, for product development, for G&A. And it looks like our gross margin will then be about 37% before taxes and depreciation, which gives us confidence to predict by year 5 we'll have 600,000 users at $57 million in revenue. And that's 0.06% of the population. How we're using the money is, right now we're putting together $500,000 to complete the prototype and bring it to launch. And then on a parallel path, we're putting together $3 million in Series A financing to approach those 3 strategic markets, New York, Chicago, and LA. And as we do it, we're transforming an industry. We've established trust with the consumer. We've become socially conscious. We're the integrity platform. We then become the bank. We become the financial service provider for this renter consumer. And what's powerful is once we have that consumer attention, we increase value for every single stakeholder in the loop. And what I mean by that is this becomes a very interesting play then for the Trulias of the world, the Zillows, potentially at Amazon. Like they want a new consumer demographic that they can market to. For another financial services company, an Aon Insurance, or a brokerage, potentially a SoftBank, or an IPO. So my name is Nathan Slafter. I am the founder of Rent. We are elevating the renter economy. Please email me at nathan@rent.ai to learn how you too can pay rent, build credit, and earn rewards. Thank you.
Great presentation. Thanks for that. Quick question. So who's giving the feedback? Then I guess it's the renter that's giving the feedback about the landlord, and the landlord's giving the feedback about the renter, right?
Yeah, it's a mutual feedback loop.
Okay. So and I know how that works. Obviously, like Uber and some of those where there's high volume that's occurring. So essentially, you can assume there's going to be pretty accurate information, even if someone had a disgruntled experience, or whatever. How do you, if someone rents only maybe 3 places in their life, let's say, I know there's a lot of people who rent all over the place, but how do you make sure that the quality of the content that's being put in there to establish someone's score is accurate and not based off of something else?
Yeah, thank you. Average turnover in the US is 22 months. In larger metropolitan areas, it's like 16 months. So people are moving every year, year and a half. What we're looking at from a credit history, a rent resume, is a combination of things. So it is your transaction history. You know, did you pay your rent on time or early? And that's immutable. Like we're going to capture yes or no, did you pay your rent on time? Which is important because I know I've spoken with many landlords and property managers who, in order to get rid of a bad tenant, will actually give them a great review, but you have the landlord doesn't know whether or not they're a great tenant. But moreover, we're also building credit traditionally with FICA and Experian and TransUnion. So the element is the traditional credit, you know, that's built upon an antiquated system, but then a proprietary credit that's specific for the rent industry. So that's transactions, that's behaviors, like did you or did you not get your security deposit back? There's other behaviors that we'll be able to track and unlock over time, and that's the power of our team. Like our team has deep insights into data science and to machine learning that will help us drive additional, markers in behavior, reputation, and social good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then lastly, what's the reason behind the name, the spelling?
You know, I wanted rent.com, but that was that was taken. Rente actually in the French word meaning revenue. And so part of our goal is to give revenue back to the people who don't have it. You know, as a renter, I felt like a second-class citizen. Like whenever someone asked, do you own this house? Do you rent? I was like, oh, I rent, but eventually I own. So the goal is to actually build an equity, build a revenue stream that had previously been untenable, and that now with technology and now with our ecosystem will give people a different identity, a different value system that they can grow with over time. And the perfect example is with the data that we will be collecting, we'll be able to underwrite insurance more strategically. Like, do you actually have to pay 2 months security deposit? Or you've rented previously, we know that you always return the place better than you found it. Like, can we underwrite that security deposit? Can we underwrite your renter's insurance? So that's really where we want to go with rent, giving people revenue.
The data part of this thing is really compelling. But it feels like you've got to market to both ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah.
Meaning you've got to market to the property managers so that they're willing to take this on. And then you got to market to the renter themselves. So is that correct?
To a certain extent, how we've built and architected our technology, we will be able to go direct to the consumer with a check writing service. So they will be able to collect the payment however they want to pay, credit card, ACH, and we'll be able to distribute that to the landlord without them being part of our platform and system.
Okay, so you don't need both ends of it to work.
Correct.
Okay, well, that helps a little bit, because it felt like that was a big effort to try to go,
Yeah.
to both entities
And-
kind of at the
and-
same time.
Yeah, ultimately, our low-hanging fruit will be the property managers. We have relationships with asset managers, REITs, and so if the compelling value proposition for them is the tenant screening, is also a potential rev share. Like, we have opportunities to drive value for them above what they're already getting from their traditional systems. So,
And back to your capital needs. I'm trying to do this from memory. You're planning on doing a Series A at
Yeah.
$3 million?
$3 million Series A.
And so no gap in between there?
$500,000 will get us to ready to launch, and then the $3 million will accelerate that launch into the major markets. So we'll be testing, prototyping, et cetera, really carving out the IP as well. We have patents identified that we'll
And
be
how'd you
pursuing.
get to the 3 million if you're still not really long? How do you know you need 3 million at this point?
Through our product roadmap. So part of these are indicators I don't know that. This is built upon our model that was validated by a third party. They recommended that by month 24, we can be cash flow positive with a $3 million investment. So this is then based upon industry benchmarks for customer acquisition, for customer development, as well as product development.
Have you had a third party look at this thing in terms of like consulting?
Yeah.
Big consulting, strategic consulting companies? What are they telling you?
They're impressed. So part of the process was really defining the model, and there was a number of revenue drivers that they thought if we can actually execute on the revenue drivers, the data, et cetera, will be very disruptive. And I'm happy to share more about that.
So your initial rollout plan is into the 3 biggest markets in the country, which is a pretty expensive thing to do from an advertising standpoint, and you're into a space with a lot of noise, right?
Yeah.
You put a billboard up or a bus sign up in San Francisco that says rent. It's competing with a lot of different other things that the consumers are being asked to look at. Have you considered more sort of organic growth or grassroots type growth, maybe through a smaller college town where there's a lot of renters or something like that as you step into the market, rather than trying to find enough investment to take, because you have to put enough into that to see if it's going to be successful, which means a large amount of investment. You might be able to step into it more organically with a smaller initial rollout.
Yeah, you're right, because roughly 1.2 million of that would be customer development in those markets. So what we addressed was, some of the relationships that our advisory team has is in those markets with landlords and REITs. And so that will be one part of the approach, but I think the other part is exactly what you said, is strategic alliances or different opportunities in smaller markets. We've had conversations with 2 of the largest renter insurance brokerage, not Lemonade, which I mentioned earlier, but 2 of the largest ones. And once we get to launch, we become a funnel for renters insurance. And so that becomes a very interesting pull methodology. Another one is a pretty substantial rewards provider, where part of the mutual benefit would be drawing people to our platform to redeem their rewards. So there's a couple other gateways that we've addressed, but that's a very good point.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of different ways you can be compelling, but what spoke to me was really your proprietary credit score for renters. What needs to happen for that to be kind of accepted in an area or whatever? And kind of part 2, do you think it's connected down the line to a FICO score?
Interestingly, in European nations as well as other developed countries, they're 8 years ahead of us in technology in terms of the rental industry. And so a lot of these standards are already somewhat adopted, but they're often demerit based. So like either are you a tenant or are you a bad tenant? There isn't this kind of like reputational score. And as we approach, as AI proliferates, the one thing that AI will never replace is emotional intelligence. And so there's going to be more and more of a demand for people understanding like what is an emotional intelligent individual that I can actually rent to. And potentially we're talking about landlord relationship, but we also see it like what else do we rent? Do we rent our cars? Do we rent short-term leases, Airbnb, etc.? So think of us as kind of like we'll tie into FICA, but we'll also have a proprietary element that I believe will gather adoption over time.
Last question. I always get down to the basics. How do you get paid? All right, so
Yeah.
so you're going to charge the landlord a discount percentage on the rent paid every month?
No.
How does it
So
work?
how we get paid is, first of all, through simple transactions. Right now, to pay with check, you have to pay a check, 55-cent stamp. You're looking at $1 just to mail your check in to your landlord. So we'll charge 90 cents, 97 cents to process a transaction. That's a small payment. But on the other note, we're also collecting, we're also a gateway for the other things that have to do with rent, your Wi-Fi, your cable TV. And from there, we actually are affiliate. So we get affiliate marketing bounties for drawing that revenue, drawing those dollars to these vendors and these suppliers. And then another piece is the data. Like the amount of data and the amount of insights we're going to have within the rental industry, from behavior to psychographics to consumer beliefs to all these other metrics, will really be a value driver and help us have a lot of intelligence that will be incredibly valuable to landlords and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.